picture this scenario. It is a Wednesday night in February. Snow is falling outside. But inside the house, everything looks normal. Your 78-year-old father is sitting in his recliner, watching the local news. He has got a blanket draped over his lap. He looks peaceful. He looks safe. He is dying. When most people imagine freezing to death, they picture dramatic scenes. Mountain climbers stranded on Everest, hikers lost in a whiteout, shivering bodies huddled in broken-down cars. On abandoned highways, they imagine wind, ice, desperation. But here is what nobody tells you. Thousands of elderly people freeze to death every single winter without ever stepping outside. They die in their living rooms, in their bedrooms, sitting in chairs they've owned for 30 years. And the most terrifying part, they don't even realize it is happening. This isn't a problem of exposure. It is a problem of biology meeting psychology. In the worst possible way, your aging parents and grandparents are walking around with internal thermostats that are broken. Their bodies can't detect cold anymore. They genuinely believe they're comfortable when they're actually entering the early stages of hypothermia. And the habit that is killing them, the same frugality that helped them survive the Great Depression, raise families on single incomes, and build the world you inherited. They're trying to save money on heating bills, and it is costing them their lives. Let me explain why this is happening, why it is invisible, and why you need to intervene right now. Before the next cold snap turns your family gathering into a funeral. The broken furnace, why aging bodies can't feel cold. Your body is a biological machine running a constant maintenance program to keep your core temperature at 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. When you're young, this system is ruthlessly efficient. Walk into a cold room, and your metabolism kicks into overdrive. Your blood vessels constrict. To keep warmth in the core, you start shivering violently. To generate heat through muscle contractions, you feel cold, so you react. You grab a jacket. You turn up the heat. You move to a warmer spot. But after age 65, something catastrophic happens to this system. The medical term is impaired thermoregulation. It is not just one component failing. It is a cascade of biological breakdowns happening simultaneously. First, the sensors die. The nerve endings in the skin that detect temperature become less sensitive. An elderly person can sit in a room that is 55 degrees and genuinely tell you they feel fine. They're not lying. They're not being stubborn. Their body simply isn't sending the danger signal to their brain. Second, the shivering response weakens. When a 30-year-old gets cold, they shiver so hard their teeth chatter. That is the body's emergency heat generation system kicking in. But elderly muscles don't respond the same way. The shivering is weak, delayed, or absent entirely, so the body cools without triggering the alarm. Third, the metabolic furnace slows down. Younger bodies burn calories at a higher rate, generating heat as a byproduct. But aging metabolism is sluggish. The internal engine runs cooler and slower. There is less fuel being burned, which means less heat being produced. Fourth, blood flow becomes inefficient. In a young person, blood vessels constrict and dilate rapidly to manage heat, but elderly vascular systems are rigid. Blood pools in the extremities. Instead of being pulled to the core, heat escapes faster than it can be replaced. The result, an elderly person can be sitting in a dangerously cold environment, and their body won't tell them. They don't feel uncomfortable. They don't feel the need to take action. And because they don't feel cold, they think everything is fine. This is the biological trap. But it gets worse when you add the psychological component, the thrift trap, when saving money becomes a death sentence. Here is the controversial truth. Nobody wants to say out loud. Your parents' generation was raised to be cheap. Not frugal, cheap. They were taught that wasting money on comfort was morally wrong. Turn off the lights when you leave the room. Don't run the water while brushing your teeth. Never crank up the heat when you can just put on a sweater. These habits made sense when they were raising 5 kids on a factory worker's salary. But now those same instincts are killing them. Winter arrives. Energy prices spike. They open the gas bill and see a number that makes them panic. So they make a decision that feels rational to them. I'll just turn the thermostat down to 60. I'll save $50 a month. I'll put on an extra blanket at night. I'll be fine. Except they won't be fine because their bodies can't adapt the way younger bodies can. A healthy 35-year-old can sleep in a 60-degree room and wake up perfectly fine. Their metabolism compensates. Their body generates enough heat overnight, but an 80-year-old in that same room, their core temperature starts dropping. 98.6 becomes 97, then 96, then 95. And because they don't feel cold, they don't realize what is happening. This is called accidental indoor hypothermia. It doesn't happen in minutes, like outdoor exposure. It happens over days. It is a slow, invisible slide toward death. Here is the math that should terrify you. Medical research shows that for elderly individuals with compromised thermoregulation, prolonged exposure to indoor temperatures below 60 degrees Fahrenheit can trigger hypothermia. Not might, can. And once the core temperature drops below 95 degrees, the body enters a cascade of organ failure. The heart struggles because cold blood thickens, circulation slows, oxygen delivery to tissues decreases. The brain starts shutting down. Non-essential functions. Confusion sets in. Motor control deteriorates. And the person sitting in that chair, they don't know they're dying. They just feel tired. Many winter deaths, officially listed as heart attacks or strokes, are actually triggered by this silent hypothermia. The cold stressed the cardiovascular system until it gave out. But because there is no dramatic scene, no frozen body found in a snowbank, nobody connects the dots. They were trying to save $50 on their heating bill, and it killed them. The invisible symptoms, why you won't recognize hypothermia when you see it. Here is the problem with indoor hypothermia. It doesn't look like what you expect. If you visit your elderly mother and she is suffering from mild hypothermia, she won't be shaking. She won't be blue. She won't be gasping for warmth. Instead, she'll just seem off. She might be quieter than usual, a little confused. She might fumble with the remote control or struggle to find the right words. When you ask her a question, you'll probably assume she is just having a bad day. Maybe her memory is getting worse. Maybe she is tired. You won't think to check if she is cold because she won't complain about being cold. Remember, her body can't detect it. There is a diagnostic tool used by paramedics and emergency medical technicians called the umbles. It is a mnemonic for recognizing hypothermia in the field. Stumbles, difficulty walking, poor coordination. Mumbles, slurred speech, difficulty communicating. Fumbles, can't manipulate buttons, zippers, or small objects. Grumbles, confusion, irritability, unusual behavior. If your elderly parent exhibits these symptoms during winter, the first instinct might be to assume they're having a stroke. You might call 911 thinking it is a medical emergency, and it is a medical emergency. But the cause might not be neurological. It might be environmental. The brain is extremely temperature sensitive. When the core temperature drops even a few degrees, cognitive function deteriorates rapidly. Memory fails, decision-making becomes impaired, personality changes. An elderly person in the early stages of hypothermia might seem like they're experiencing dementia or confusion, when really they're just cold. But here is where it gets truly bizarre. There is a rare but documented symptom called paradoxical undressing. As hypothermia progresses, the muscles controlling blood vessel constriction become exhausted and fail. Suddenly, warm blood from the core rushes to the skin. The person feels an overwhelming sensation of heat. Their confused, oxygen-deprived brain tells them they're burning up. So they start taking off their clothes. First responders occasionally find elderly victims of hypothermia, partially or completely undressed in freezing homes. To an outsider, it looks insane. Why would someone take their clothes off in a cold house? But to the dying brain, it makes perfect sense. They feel hot, so they strip down. If you ever find an elderly family member undressed in a cold environment, understand this. You are witnessing the final stages of hypothermia. Minutes matter. Call 911 immediately. The 68-degree rule, the one number that saves lives. So how do you prevent this? How do you fight against a broken biological system and a lifetime of ingrained habits? You establish non-negotiable rules, not suggestions. not recommendations. Rules with consequences. The World Health Organization states that a minimum indoor temperature of 64 degrees Fahrenheit is acceptable for healthy adults. But for vulnerable populations, including the elderly, infants, and those with chronic illness, the recommended minimum is higher. In the United States, medical experts and gerontologists recommend that thermostats in homes with elderly occupants should never drop below 68 degrees Fahrenheit, ever. Not during the day, not at night, not to save money, not for any reason. This isn't arbitrary. It is based on decades of mortality data showing that indoor temperatures below this threshold correlate with increased risk of cold-related illness and death in seniors. But here is the problem. Your 80-year-old father doesn't believe you. He thinks 68 degrees is wasteful. He grew up in a house where 55 degrees was normal. He thinks you're being soft. He thinks you're wasting his money. You need to have the uncomfortable conversation, and you need to frame it in terms he understands. Dad, every dollar you save on heating will be spent on the ambulance ride. And if that doesn't scare you, think about this. The hospital bill for treating hypothermia-induced heart failure will cost more than 10 years of heating bills. So either you keep the house at 68, or I'm taking control of the thermostat. If they're on a fixed income and genuinely can't afford to heat their home properly, there are programs designed to help. The HEAP, Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program, provides federal funding to help low-income households with heating costs. Many states have additional programs. Help them apply. Fill out the paperwork for them if necessary. Do not let them freeze to save money. That assistance programs are designed to cover the technology override taking control when they won't. What if your parent refuses to keep the heat up? What if they have memory issues and forget? What if they're stubborn and you live 3 states away? You install a smart thermostat with remote monitoring and control. Modern smart thermostats like Nest, Ecobee, or Honeywell allow you to set a minimum temperature lock. Even if your parent manually adjusts the thermostat, it won't drop below the threshold you've programmed. You can control it from your smartphone. Anywhere in the world, you can receive alerts if the temperature drops below a certain point. This isn't about taking away their autonomy. This is about installing a safety system, the same way you'd install grab bars in the bathroom or a medical alert device. Their broken biology means they can't be trusted to regulate their own environment anymore. Is this controlling? Yes. Is it paternalistic? Absolutely. Is it necessary to keep them alive? Without question. The clothing and bedding audit layers that actually work. Even with the thermostat locked at 68 degrees, elderly bodies lose heat faster than young ones. So you need to audit what they're wearing. And sleeping under cotton pajamas are comfortable, but they're terrible insulators. When cotton gets damp from sweat or humidity, it becomes a heat sink. It pulls warmth away from the body. Replace their cotton sleepwear with thermal layers made from wool or synthetic fleece. These materials trap air and maintain insulation. Even when damp, check their bedding. A single cotton sheet and a thin blanket aren't enough. They need layered bedding with actual insulating properties. Down comforters, fleece blankets, thermal sheets. Make sure there are blankets on every chair. They sit in, not decorative throws, actual warm blankets. If they spend 4 hours a day in a recliner, that chair needs a blanket within arm's reach. And here is the most important check. Put your hand on their chest or stomach. When you visit, not their hand, not their cheek. Those extremities are always cooler. Touch their core. If their stomach or chest feels cool to the touch, they're already in danger. The core should feel warm, almost toasty. If it doesn't, you need to act immediately. The controversial truth: we're killing them with kindness and neglect. Here is what nobody wants to admit. This isn't just a medical problem. It is a cultural failure. We live in a society that worships independence and autonomy for the elderly. We tell them, age gracefully and maintain your dignity and stay in your own home as long as possible. We celebrate their self-sufficiency, but that same independence kills them when their bodies can no longer keep up. We're so afraid of being controlling, so worried about respecting their wishes, that we let them make decisions their broken biology can't support. We let them turn down the heat because it is their house and their choice. We let them refuse help because they've earned the right to live how they want. and then we find them dead. The average person would never let a toddler decide whether to wear a coat in winter, but we let an 85-year-old with impaired thermoregulation set their own thermostat. We treat cognitive decline and memory loss as reasons to provide more support, but we ignore the biological decline. That is just as dangerous. This isn't about taking away dignity. This is about acknowledging that aging bodies have limitations that require intervention. Just like we wouldn't let someone with failing eyesight continue driving, we shouldn't let someone with failing thermoregulation control their own heat. The hard truth: sometimes keeping someone alive requires making them uncomfortable. Sometimes it requires overriding their wishes. Sometimes it requires forcing help they don't think they need. Because dead people don't have dignity.